the truth awaits in the dark. True story.
What is the true scent of fear? Is it the smell of ozone before a violent storm? The sterile, cold air of an empty hospital corridor at 3 a.m.? Or is it the heavy metallic stench of iron and salt, the unmistakable scent of fresh human blood? If you find blood in a crime scene, it means there is a victim. But what if there is no victim? What if the blood isn't coming from a body, but from the very walls of your home? Welcome to the Verdict Files. Tonight, we open the police archives of October 1986 to a quiet town in northern France. We are going to look at a case so deeply disturbing, the local authorities ultimately decided that the only solution was to wipe the building off the face of the earth.
This one's heavy.
Almost there.
This is the documented, terrifying true story of La Maison qui Saigne,
Merci chérie.
the bleeding house of Saint-Quentin. Saint-Quentin is a peaceful commune in northern France. It's the kind of place where neighbors know each other's names, where the postman stops for coffee, and where police officers spend more time directing traffic than solving violent crimes. In 1986, a young couple, Jean-Marc and Lucie, found what they thought was their perfect home. It was a modest, slightly old house, but it had character. It was a place to build a future, to raise a family, to grow old. For the first few months, life was exactly as they planned. Mundane, peaceful, boring in the best possible way. But
think the smell is
houses,
coming from under
like
here.
people, have memories,
What is that?
and sometimes
It looks like a
those
leak.
memories
That's the source.
refuse to stay buried. It began in the second week of October. The weather was turning cold, the autumn leaves were falling, and a strange, heavy atmosphere seemed to settle over the property. Lucie was the first to notice it. A smell. It was faint at first, lingering in the hallway near the kitchen. A sharp, copper-like odor that made her stomach churn. She checked the pipes, the garbage, the refrigerator. Nothing. Then she saw it. Low on the kitchen wall, just above the skirting board, was a small,
Jean-Marc, you're
dark
finally
red
back.
stain.
Yeah.
It
What's
was
wrong?
the size of a
on the wall.
coin. Lucie
that?
didn't panic. She assumed Jean-Marc had cut his finger while fixing something, or perhaps something had spilled. She took a damp cloth, wiped it away, and forgot about it. Next morning, the stain was back. Only this time, it wasn't the size of a coin. It was the size of a handprint. And it wasn't dry. It was wet. It was fresh. When Jean-Marc came home from work, Lucie showed him the wall. He touched the thick crimson liquid. It smeared across his fingertips. It was warm. He immediately checked himself, then checked his wife. Neither of them was bleeding. They scrubbed the wall with bleach, the harsh chemical smell masking the copper scent. For a few hours, they breathed a sigh of relief. But as night fell, the house began to change. The silence of the night was broken by strange, subtle sounds. A soft popping noise, like thick liquid bubbling. When the sun rose, the nightmare truly began. The kitchen was no longer the only affected room. Splatters of red had appeared on the living room walls. Drops of the substance were found on their clean plates in the cupboards. In the bedroom, a horrifying streak of red ran down the wallpaper, stopping just inches above their pillows. The couple was paralyzed by fear. This wasn't a leak from a rusty pipe. Rusty water is brown and thin. This was thick, dark, and coagulating. They did what anyone in their right mind would do. They called the police. When the local gendarmes arrived at the house, they were expecting a domestic dispute, a prank, or maybe a bursting sewage pipe. They walked in with their notepads ready, completely skeptical of the frantic couple standing outside.
I don't know what to do. Help us!
But the moment the officers stepped through the front door, the smell hit them. As trained investigators, they knew that scent intimately. It was the smell of a severe trauma scene. They inspected the walls. They photographed the splatters on the dishes and the bed sheets. The lead inspector, a man of logic and science, refused to jump to supernatural conclusions. Someone is playing a very sick joke on you, the inspector told Jean-Marc. Someone is breaking into your home and painting your walls with animal blood to scare you out. It was a logical theory. A cruel neighbor, a vindictive ex-colleague, or a disturbed local teenager. To prove it, the police decided to set a trap. A trap so simple, yet so effective, it would leave no room for doubt. The police evacuated Jean-Marc and Lucy from the house. They were sent to stay with relatives. The house was now an official crime scene. Before leaving, the officers performed a meticulous lockdown. They checked every window, every vent, every possible point of entry. Then they brought in bags of fine white baking flour. They started from the deepest part of the house, backing their way toward the front door. As they walked, they covered the entire floor of the house in a thick, unbroken layer of white flour. Every hallway, every room, every staircase. If a human being, an animal, or even a large insect moved across that floor, it would leave a clear, undeniable trail. They stepped out of the front door, locked it with a deadbolt, and applied official police wax seals to the door frames and windows. No one could enter without breaking the seal. Furthermore, officers were stationed in unmarked cars outside the property to keep watch all night. The house was completely sealed. It was an airtight box. The night passed slowly. The officers outside reported absolutely no movement. No shadows in the windows, no sounds, no visitors. At exactly 8 a.m. the next morning, the lead inspector arrived with a team. They checked the exterior. The wax seals on the windows were perfectly intact. The seal on the front door was untouched. Nobody had entered from the outside. The inspector broke the seal, turned the key, and pushed the door open. The team stood in the doorway, staring at the floor. The layer of white flour was absolutely perfect. It was undisturbed. It looked like a fresh blanket of snow. There was not a single footprint, not a smudge. Nothing had walked across that floor. But as the officers raised their flashlights to the walls, they froze. The house had bled again. Fresh, heavy streams of dark red liquid were running down the walls of the hallway. More splatters had appeared in the living room. The flour on the floor was completely clean, meaning whatever was doing this didn't stand on the ground. The logical theory of an intruder was shattered in an instant. The inspector, pale and visibly shaken, ordered a forensic team to collect samples. They scraped the liquid into sterile vials and rushed it to the National Crime Laboratory in Paris. For days, Jean-Marc and Lucy lived in absolute dread, waiting for the results. The story leaked to the local press, and soon the house was surrounded by curious onlookers, journalists, and self-proclaimed ghost hunters. When the laboratory report finally came back, it didn't provide comfort. It provided a horrifying truth. The lab confirmed two things. First, the substance was not paint. It was not rust. It was not a chemical compound. Second, it was not animal blood. The official forensic report concluded that the liquid collected from the walls of the locked house in Saint-Quentin was undeniably, unequivocally human blood. But whose blood was it? The police took DNA samples from Jean-Marc and Lucy. The blood on the walls did not match the husband. It did not match the wife. It belonged to an unknown human being. A human being who was nowhere to be found. The police were at a dead end. You cannot arrest a house. You cannot interrogate drywall. They brought in historians trying to find if a massacre had occurred on the land decades or centuries prior. While the region had seen its fair share of casualties during World War I, there was no specific record of a tragedy directly on that plot of land that would explain this terrifying phenomenon. Jean-Marc and Lucy never returned. They abandoned their belongings and moved far away, desperate to leave the nightmare behind. As for the house, the local authorities, unable to solve the mystery and desperate to stop the growing media circus, took the most drastic action possible. They condemned the property. Shortly after, bulldozers arrived. The house that bled was torn down, smashed into rubble, and the land was covered in thick salt and concrete. Today, an empty, quiet lot stands where the house once was. People walk past it every day, unaware of the horror that seeped from its walls. Science tells us that everything has a rational explanation. But what happens when logic fails? When a sealed room, watched by police, bleeds the blood of a stranger? Perhaps some places are just fundamentally broken. Perhaps some land holds onto trauma so tightly that the only way it can speak is to bleed. If this documented police mystery made your blood run a little cold, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm you want more deep dives into the terrifying unknown. Subscribe to the Verdict Files and turn on notifications, because there are more locked doors in the archives waiting to be opened. Until next time, be careful what kind of history you buy into. Stay safe.
The truth awaits in the dark. True story.